first function we will do if error, and then we will do the is error. Now is error basically is a combination of, so we call it like is error, if is error, right? This is a combination of is error and if function. You already know the if function. Once you know the is error, we will combine it. Okay, so these are all, we call them error handlers. Error handlers, right? Whenever you have a situation where you do not want to display the errors, and instead the errors you want to display something meaningful, or maybe you want to do something, you want to put some other formula, right? Like, when I say error, what I mean is that when you get hash NA, hash ref, and uh, hash value, any sort of error, right? So let's talk about first of all the if error condition. So I write here a number, let's say numerator and denominator. So I write here 100, and then we write here, let's say 3. Now what do you want to do? You want to divide these two numbers. Okay, so this is what we do. This divide by this. You got the answer? Perfect. Now I will go and generate the error here, right? So let's say I put here 0, like this. Then what happens? You get the error, right? Because you cannot divide any number with 0. Now you want to avoid this error, because generally what happens when you make some dashboards, some report, any sort of thing, you avoid errors, because a person who's going to look at your Excel file, they will consider those errors as maybe some maybe some malfunctioning in your function, right? So to avoid that sort of thing, you display something else. Now for example, in this case we can say that if the error comes, then let's go and print here denominator invalid, or maybe something else, whatever, right? So that's how this is where we have this function called if error. I start with this function if error. Look at this, guys. This function has two parameters. The first parameter is the value, and the second parameter is value if error. So what happens, we say that if the value is there, good. If the value doesn't come, which means the formula does not give the value, then what do you want to do? Then you want to write here invalid, for example. This is what you want to do. You press enter and look at this. Okay, the moment I change this to 88, look at this, the number coming back, because 100 divided by 88 is giving some value. So if the value comes, you will find the value. If the value doesn't come and if there is error, then you get invalid. This is how it is. Let's go and do this again. If error, start the bracket, value. So in the value we write a formula or whatever you want to write, right? So my formula is this divided by this, right? If this returns value, we will never go in the value if error parameter. Now if I get the error when I divide f5 by g5, then whatever I write here, for example I write space, this is how we write the space. You have seen that in the Excel. So I just close this, I press enter, and look at this. There is a formula, but it looks like this cell is totally blank. Okay, the moment I put some number here, you will have your value coming back. This is how you do it. Okay, so again I put here 0. You see that this is gone. This is your if error. Now if error can be used in any formula. For example, you have some employee IDs here. Let's do this with the VLOOKUP, guys. So suppose you have your employee ID and you have your name. Okay, so let's say we have these names. Now I go here and I put employee ID and I put here 77, which is not available in the main database, you know that. So some of the IDs are there, some of the IDs are not there. Now if we want to find the name, this is how we use the VLOOKUP lookup value. Then we go and select the table, and then we say second column number and then the exact match. I press enter and obviously the error will come. Let me go and freeze the table, F4, and we just go and double click here. You got the formula. Okay, now once you got the formula, avoid sending this file to anyone without putting some information in place of the errors, because they don't look good, they give the very poor impression, right? So because if I look at your file, I may feel that maybe the person has done something wrong and the formula is coming like this, right? So but the formula is correct. We don't have the employee ID, and that is why we are getting this error. What to do now? So again we will put this space, for example. So the if error. So what do? You come in the equals to and you write here if error, start the bracket. Two parameters in the if error, value and value if error. So what are you going to write in the value? This entire formula, and then comma value if error. What do you want? Let's say I want to say employee not valid or employee not found. Maybe you can say that, but I'll just keep it a space. I close this, and this is where you see that how the formula is working, guys. So they are very, very important. You should definitely know them, and they're very simple actually. Right now we are learning the if error. We just go and start with the if is error also, right? So this is how we write the if error. Is it clear? Now this is not just one thing, guys. We can do a lot of other things also with the if error. See this. I go here, okay, I go here and I say that let's do some exercise. You have here, let's say, some transaction IDs. I say here INC 9493, INC 83, INC, some transaction numbers are there. Now I have a question. So these are your transaction IDs. Now what we want to do is, we want to show transaction IDs as invalid if they contains number called, let's say, 3. Okay, so see what's gonna happen. First of all, you have to find 3 in the cell. Which function can let us know whether this, which function can tell us that this 3 exists in this cell or not? Obviously find. So we can use the find function. So I say find 3 within the text, this text, and the start number has to be 1, right? You got the position. Now when you drag this, see what's going to happen, guys. You will have the position of 3 everywhere, right? Now our like this. Obviously now find is not able to find the 3. Find is not able to search the 3, and in return you'll get the error, right? Now this error, actually we're gonna use it now in our favor, because you see, if the error comes, that means 3 is not there. So what do? You go in this cell and you can say if error. Now in the value, I can say that I'm not putting a formula. You can also write in this way. You just go and select this cell and you see that if this value is going to be the, the value, okay, so we will have the value which is D3. But if it is the error, then we say that invalid. This is how it is, right? And for the time being, forget that you don't need the valid. You just need that if the 3 is not there, we want invalid, otherwise the number. So drag this and look at this. So how the formula is reading, if I press F2, this is how the formula is reading. You can see here, this is coming like this. So we have this error coming here and it reads D6 and it finds that D6 has an error and it goes in the invalid. Well, you can also combine both the things. For example, when you have used 3, when you find this 3 in this text, this is how you do it, right? So you can say that if error, start the bracket, in the value now the formula will come, and in the value if error we will have that invalid. Simple. So when you drag this, this is how you'll get the answer. Obviously you have to use this way. Don't use the two separate columns when you can combine the formula, and you should be able to do it in the single column. So this is how it is. So you see, if error can work with any formula. It all depends upon the situation. Now for example, look at this exercise. This is very important exercise. Suppose I have here sheet A and there is another sheet called B and there is another sheet called C. Okay, and in the sheet A I have employee ID. Let's say I have employee ID 300, 100, 300, 400, 500, 800, 900. Okay, that's what I need. Now, in the another table, I copy this and I go here. Let's say here the data is written here. So here we have, let's say, employee ID 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000, 5000 and 6000. And then let's say 8000. Employee IDs in the sheet A. I have written some employee IDs in the sheet A also, different employee IDs. I'm going to write some employee IDs here also. So let's say I write here 400, 900, 1000, 3000, 56, 533 and 633 maybe. Now what do you want to do? Please find these employee IDs in sheet A first. If they are found, show their status, which is, I go and write here. So I'm just gonna write here, let's say okay, so we want this. Here also you have now you want to find out first the employee ID in the sheet A. If it comes, good. If it doesn't, then you have to go and find that employee ID in the sheet C. So these are the employee IDs. Now understand what I repeat that, what we want to do. You want to find all these employee IDs one by one. First you want to find these employee IDs in sheet A. So I write here, if they are not found, then these employee IDs need to be checked in sheet C. Okay. Finally, when we know employee IDs are not in either of the sheet, display not found anywhere. Okay, so the question is that we would like to go ahead and we would like to find the employee IDs in sheet A, and once we get them, once we find them, very nice, we will go and capture the the status. But what if they are not there? Then you don't want to simply go and say that invalid, no, nowhere found, not found anywhere. I mean, what you're supposed to do is then you're supposed to go and find that employee ID in the sheet C, where we have another table. Now this sort of thing you have never done it, so this is very important. So how are we gonna do it? So the first thing is that, which should come in your mind, how are you gonna find out the status? You know that you are going to look up this employee ID in the sheet A or sheet C, whatever it is, and there is only one formula which can look up this employee ID status in the table 1 and then in the table 2, which is in the sheet C, and that formula is VLOOKUP. Okay, so first of all you go and use the VLOOKUP. So I go and use the VLOOKUP here. VLOOKUP this employee ID in this table. So I go and select this sheet. We have already done this, how to use the VLOOKUP in the different sheets, if you remember. And then I say the second column and then the exact match, right? This is how we write the formula, guys. Now when I press enter, or maybe here only, because I have now got the practice, I will go and freeze this, the complete table. I press enter and look at this. You got the answer, right? And we will drag this. So finally we have the answer. Now it is very interesting. Obviously you are able to find 400 and 900 in the sheet A. that's why you are able to get their status. But what about the employee ID 1000? Now we know that the 1000 is not available in this sheet, but we said that if it is not there, our formula should go and check that 1000 in the sheet C also before it returns error, right? And if you look at in the sheet C, you have the employee ID there. So if you have the employee ID there, that means you can't show this as NA. NA would come for, I think, for 533 and 633 because they are not there. 1000 and 1000, 1000 and 3000 are there. Now how you are going to use the two VLOOKUPs, and how you will let the Excel know that look, you don't have to stop here, you have to go to sheet C also before you return any error. Well, we have the error, guys. So for any error, what do you mean if the error comes when you use the VLOOKUP? Obviously that means that value is not available in the table, right? So we will go and say, if the error comes in the value, I write formula. If the formula executes and give me the result, very nice, the formula should stop and we will have there the status male female. But if the formula returns the error, value if error, then what do you want to do? Then you want to start a new VLOOKUP in case of error only. So we will say VLOOKUP now. I'm not writing here anything to be printed. I say VLOOKUP, look up this employee ID, and then go in the table, this table. This time this is the table. You can freeze the table also simultaneously when you're writing the formula, comma, column number obviously will be 2, and then you will have a 0. So we just go and close the bracket and we press enter, and now you see that if I drag this, you have 1000, you have 3000, but this is not coming and we know the reason. So how the function works, just like any other formula. Specifically, let me talk about the if function. You remember that if has two parameters, true and false. Both the parameters you cannot run at the same time. If the condition is true, then true part executes, otherwise false part executes, right? In the same way, this value and the value if error both are different. If the value comes means what? If the value comes from the formula, whatever you're writing in the value parameter, if that formula returns a value, the value will come. But if that formula returns the error, then what you have written in the error part, which is value if error, that is going to be executed. Now what you have written is that's entirely situational based thing, right? Like in this case, we are not writing here blank, we are not writing here not valid, invalid, like we were doing it in the previous exercise. Here we are writing a formula. So we are writing a formula. Which formula? VLOOKUP. Why? Because we want to search the same employee ID in the sheet C also. But we would go in the sheet C only if we are unable to find the value in the sheet A, the employee ID in the sheet A. If I find the employee ID in the sheet A, why will I go? What is the need to go in the sheet C? That is why I said that only if the error comes, then you go and print that value, right? So if you just go and click on the formula and you click on the evaluate formula, you see how it happens. This underline item F4, I go and click here, right? You got the 400. Now this VLOOKUP will fetch the information for you from the sheet A. You remember the sheet name with the sign of exclamation? I told you this is how you can understand that from where the data is coming. So the main table C3 to D9 is coming from the sheet A, right? And we are looking that 400 employee ID there, and if the formula finds 400, we will go and have the second column in return. So I go and click on the evaluate. You see that I got the answer, guys. So once you have got this answer as male, okay, then what happens? Look at this. This VLOOKUP is also, it is going to execute. Look at this. The moment I click on the value, that VLOOKUP is gone. You just got the male. So error part did not get executed. Let's go and check that here. In this case, this is the 3000. Click on the evaluate. Now F7. F7 is 3000, and we know that VLOOKUP will give the error because 3000 is not available in the sheet A table C3 to D9. So when you click on the evaluate, what do you get? Error. Now guys, when you get the error, look at this. This time it is underlining, this, we have the entire function underlined. In the previous case, only F7 was underlined. Well, we don't really generally have to look at the underline thing here, but all I'm saying is that if the error comes, then this function will be executed. Look at this. Evaluate. It's going here. This entire function is going to be executed. Finally, you have the female. So now the if error is what? Do we have the error? Yes, we have the error. Obviously, this is the error, this hash NA. So we will have the female part getting executed. This is how the function actually works. So what you write here, that decides the execution part of the function. So in the value, if you have written a formula and that formula returns the error, immediately your function will go in this parameter. and work accordingly. If the function does not return the error, then the function stops there. Function returns the value, so function stops there. Function will never go to the if error, never go to the value if error part. Now this is done. Now my next question is, what about this particular part, hash NA? Because 533 and 633, they are not available in either of the sheets. So we would like to display here not found anywhere. Finally, I'm saying if this entire function returns the error to me, that means the employee ID does not exist anywhere. So I'll put this entire formula in the if error again. So this is what I will do. See this, guys. I say if error, if this entire value, which means if this entire function returns me the error, then what I want to do, value if error, you're gonna write here not found. If this entire function returns the error, then immediately you will go on in this value if error parameter. If this function returns something to you which we have already seen, then this parameter will not be executed. So you're writing one more if error. So finally, when I drag this is how the function works. If you go here and write something, let's say 8, 8 does not exist anywhere, you have the answer. If you go and write here, let's say 500 or 600, it's not there, I guess. Then 500 maybe, yeah, you see that it is working now. This is how. Now what they are saying, let me repeat that formula again for you guys, and this time we will do the second way. So first of all, I said that I want to find this employee ID in the sheet A. Sheet A, sheet C, that's all up to you. You just need to use the VLOOKUP. So I say that VLOOKUP, go in this table, let's write in the formula bar so that we can see the parameter. Table array, where is my table? So let's say this time I'm finding it in the sheet C, guys. Okay, I can do that. There's no point of starting from sheet A first and then sheet C. It's not required, because ultimately your goal is, if I find that in the sheet C, I get the status, and if it is not in the sheet C, then I go to the sheet A. So whichever way you want to do it, you can set up the priority. We don't have any issue. So this time I'm finding the VLOOKUP in the sheet C, so I go and write the formula, and I simply first write the formula and make sure that the formula should have a proper referencing, right? So that 400 is not available in the sheet C. Okay, now how will you tell this to Excel that you have to now go to the sheet A? Well, there is only one way. If you get the error, then you use the error handler, and then using the error handler you communicate to the Excel that you don't have to stop here. Now your job is to go and check that employee ID in the sheet A. But how will you do it? So we will simply say that look, if error, if this value comes as value, if this formula comes as a value, great, let's not go anywhere, let's get the value. But what if the value comes as an error, value of error? So what we will do, we will quickly then say, so if the error comes, then I would like to go and search this 400 in this sheet. So I go in this sheet now, I freeze the table, F4, comma 2, comma 0. Finally I go and all the parameters are done, only 2 parameters we have, close the bracket, press enter, and you have your answer. Now you're gonna drag it, and this is how it looks like. Perfect. You got the NA, obviously it is nowhere. So this VLOOKUP also fails, this VLOOKUP also fail to find this 8. So finally now what we are saying, in the previous example I put the if error, I put the if error before this entire function. This is another way. The second way is that, you see, this VLOOKUP, if gets executed, if it returns the value, that means the lookup 400 is found in the sheet C. We don't have to go to this parameter, Excel will not go, if error will not go in this parameter and returns. But let's say it's not there, your 400 is not found in sheet C, then obviously this formula will be executed. In this formula now what I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say that if error, if this VLOOKUP returns the error, this VLOOKUP, remember I'm writing here, if error inside this if error, so I'm saying that if this VLOOKUP returns the error, then what to do? So you press here comma, value if error. Now this value if error belongs to this if error, so you can write here that, you know, not found. That's it. This is the another way you can do it. And then you go here and drag this and the result comes same. Different approaches. So if you would like to check this how it is working, let's go and select this cell and let's see that formula. I click on the valued formula. So guys, we have F5, you know F5 is 400. I'm sorry, it's 8 actually. This 8 we are going to find in the sheet C, and you know it will return the error because it does not exist in the sheet C. We got the error. Now once you got the error, you know what is supposed to happen. This value if error portion should be executed. I click on the evaluate, so this formula now starts getting executed, right? You see this comma, because this is the value if error parameter and we got the error. So this time now this VLOOKUP is going to be executed. I click on the evaluate. You see that now this also comes in as an error. So we have written the if error inside this. So we said that if this value comes as an error, then you have to go and write the not found. This is how it is. So whether you put inside this, in this parameter, in this value if error, you are again writing the one more if error, you know, or you just go and put that just in the beginning. Choice is yours. Let me have here board. What is the question? I'm writing the question here. If you want to try on your Excel, you can open your Excel. I'll give you 5 minutes. Okay, now see that. This is the question. If the board enrollment is greater than 50, show that as excellent. If it is not greater than 50, add 10 to the enrolled number. If board not found, display not needed. Okay, so what is the question? The question is, you have here some boards here. You want to find out how many students have enrolled against these boards, with the condition that you don't have to only find the enrolled candidate. Basically, enrolled candidate is just a condition. Once you find the enrolled candidate, you will check if that is greater than 50. If that number is greater than 50, you want to show here as an excellent. But let's say if it is not, let's say if the Delhi board does not have more than 50 people, right? In this case it has 66, so definitely excellent should be the answer. But let us say it is not greater than 50, then what? Then suppose if this is 8, excellent will not come here now. So what should come? 8 plus 10. If the student enrolled is not greater than 50 for that board, your formula should add 10 to the existing enrolled number of of that board. It should add 10 to it. So in this case it is going to be 18. Okay. Third thing, if the Delhi is not there, let's say, then it writes here not needed. This is what you have to do. So the first thing which we will do is, you need to understand how you will find that the enrolled amount is greater than 50 or not. Only when you come to know that what is actually the enrolled number for this board, because once you find that, only then you will be able to compare it. So if I have here 50, I can compare that 50 with the if condition, that are you greater than 50, this way. But how will you find that 50? Because if you are not able to find the 50, how will you put that in the test condition? So first we need to find that how many people enrolled for this board, and for that, if you thought of the VLOOKUP, you were correct. So VLOOKUP, look up this value in this table, second column, and then 0. I go and freeze this table now because I have to drag it, right? But before I drag it, I'm gonna say if the output of this function is greater than 50, formula returns a value which is greater than 50, then what do you want to do in the value of true? You want to say that excellent. But what if the value is not greater than 50? Then you have to add 10 to the enrolled value. But sometime what people say when I give this exercise to them, they say that Ajay, go in this cell and add 10 to it. Now my question is, how do you know that it is in the E7? It can be in any other cell also. So suppose if you have 2000 rows, you have 2000 boards. Are you telling me that you're gonna find out that board where it is, and then select that cell, the next cell, very next cell to it? Of course not, guys, right? I'm not here to do the manual thing. I will search again. I will again find out the enrolled amount, but this time it is going to be executed for the false parameter. So we will again go and check that. So let's go and find out the Delhi again. Let's go and check the enrolled amount for this Delhi in the second column here. Once you get the value of the enrolled, you're gonna add 10 to that output. This is how it is. So finally your false parameter is done. We go and press enter. You got the 18. You want to check how the function works? Let's go quickly to the valued formula. J7, what we have in the J7? It is DL. Okay, so this DL VLOOKUP finds in the D3 to E9. I click on the evaluate. What do you got? 8. Is it greater than 50? Now look at this. This is very important. If you guys do not put this greater than 50 here, it is a if function. In the logic, you always you make sure that the logic should return true or false, right? So you have to put the comparison here. If you're not going to put the comparison here, which is less than equals to, not equals to, whatever it is, please don't use the if function. That means you're going in the wrong direction. So finally I have 8, and this 8 is going to be compared with my 50. What you will get? You will get false. If it is false, this excellent will be ignored. We had seen this in the if exercises many times. So finally this excellent is going to be ignored, and we will be on the false parameter. What you have written the false? Again one more VLOOKUP. So now VLOOKUP will start finding this J7 again in the same table, and it's gonna return what? It's gonna return the 8. Finally when the 8 comes, it will be added with the 10, and you have your 18 as an answer. Okay, so now when I drag this again, down, making sure your table should be freezed properly, which we have already done. You see that you got the excellent in the ICSEC. Why? Well, if you look at the answer, of course, this is coming correct, but how the function works, let's go to the valued formula. J8, what is in the J8? ICSE. ICSE, let's have a look in the D3 to E9 table. So what we got? 66. Is it greater than 50? Yes. So if it is true, then you know it will go in the excellent parameter, because both the parameters cannot be executed. Value if true, value if false. I told you, whenever you work with the if functions, whether it is if and or if or single if, this time we are using the single if, you will only have one parameter getting executed at a time. So once we have the true, we will go and write the excellent. We will not go in the second part. Right now, finally guys, you have here some numbers getting added and some the status coming as excellent. What about the error part? Obviously, if the board is not there, you cannot add anything, because the function will return the error. So finally, we say that if the entire output is going to be the error, so we just go and use the if error. If this entire output returns me the error, the output of this function, in the value of error you will write not needed. So this covers your if error part. I hope this is clear. Now let's go to the next part, which is again very important. We will be talking about now the if is error. There is another error handler which is given to us to sort out these kind of situations. For example, look at this guys. I'll start with the very basic one. So I have a numerator here and denominator here. The same example. I write here 10 and I write here 4. Right? Now I will go and divide this. Now my question is, see this. My question is, if numerator and denominator, divide this, gives the error, please display denominator invalid, else valid. Now think on this and tell me, how will you do it? I've already written the formula here. I'm already dividing it. Now we don't need this 2.5. Either we need valid or invalid. So now understand. We have some very good functions in Excel. We call them Boolean functions. Boolean functions are those functions which returns either true or false. They don't return anything else. Like VLOOKUP can return a number. I said this before also. VLOOKUP can return a text also. If you are looking up the information, let's say you want the scores, maths, science, for the employee IDs, your output will be in a number. If you're looking for the names against the employee IDs given to you using the VLOOKUP, you will have the names, and names are always in the text format. VLOOKUP can give you anything. When we talk about the find function, match function, these functions always return number because they are there to find out the position. Find returns the position of a text in a cell. Match returns the position of an entire cell in a table. So if you have a table where you have 15 names and you want to find out that this person is in which row number or position, you use the match function, right? If you have a value in a cell called, let's say, ajay@yahoo.com, you want to find what is the position of @ you use the find. So what I'm saying is, these function never returns text, they always return number. Same way, Boolean functions return true or false. So what are the Boolean functions? For example, is number, is text. They are basically a question, You're asking, are you a number? Are you a true? So they return, yes, I'm a number, so true. I'm not a number, false. I'm a text, true. I'm not a text, false. Is odd. You can also check whether the number is odd or not. You can also check whether the number is even, if the number is even or not. This is something which I'm just telling you in advance. Maybe in the future we may use it, who knows. But my main priority is to today make you familiar with the is error function. Are you the error? So let's go and check that. First of all, is number. How we write it? Very simple. Just go and write is number. Okay. So you want to check something. So for example, I select this cell. Is H5 a number? Obviously, you know that. Is text. Is the same cell is a text? It is not. What you'll get? False. Right? If you just go and find out something else, for example, something called text, this is a text, F4, right? You have the true. Simple, guys. Is odd. You want to find out, is that number is odd? For example, this number, just one parameter, only one parameter. It is not. If I just go and change that to 9, you get that number as true, because 9 is an odd number. Same way is even. Are you the even number? It is even. So what I'm saying is they always return true or false. They don't return anything else. Topic, guys, is error. So you have now this another weapon in your arsenal. You can check whether the value is an error or not. How you can check? Is error? Select the cell. That's it. 1.5 is not an error. So you got what? You got false. So if I just go and convert this 1.5 into error, obviously 9 by 0 will return error. Can you see that? This says true. So how we are going to use this concept now here? Look at this, guys. What I will do, if I start if, in the logic test, what are you gonna write? Is error. You're gonna write is error in the logic part of your if. So make sure you close the bracket. Okay. If return the error to me, if this entire function is the error, what you'll get? You'll get true, because you're asking, are you the error? So if this comes as an error to me, I will get here true. So what do you want to write? You want to write invalid. And then if it is not true, that means there is no error. So you're going to write here valid. This is the difference between if is error and if error. Basically, if is error is a combination of if and is error, but people call it if is error only because they are used like this to trace the errors, right? Now what happens if you go here and say that 9, you see that you are not getting here answer called 1, you're getting valid. Why? Because if you just want to have a look in the formula, evaluate formula, see how it works. E5, what is E5? 9. What is F5? 9. So guys, 9 by 9 will give you what? 1. You are asking a now question. Now please, as I always say that in the logic you always put greater than, less than, not equals to something, I'm not putting anything here. I'm not using any that, the symbol, that comparison operator I'm not using, but I'm using the is error. Is error also returns true or false, and as I said that logic should return true or false. So when you're going to put is error, you are going to ask the question that is this the error? The answer, which is 1, it is not the error. So what you will get? You will get false. So finally, when the if gets the false, if no, where it has to go? If will go in the value a false parameter. This is how it is. So what is the difference between if is error and if error? Basically, if error is also a very great function, obviously, but if you ever want to go on the other side, which is that you want to do something when the error doesn't come, then in that case if error actually fails. Let me quickly give you now exercise. You will then understand. See this. So here, let's say we have some employee IDs, and here you have their name. This is the table 1, and here we have the table 2. And here we're gonna write, let's say, marks. Okay, now see this. I write here maths. These are the scores. Now what I want to do is, here, this is the question I'm writing here. Think on this. So I say if employee ID, obviously in table 2, right? If the employee ID has got marks, let's say greater than 70, pass. Okay, if employee ID has got marks less than 70 but, or that means what I'm saying is, if the employee ID has got marks between 50 and 69, okay, not 70, or maybe, yeah, because the previous thing is greater than 70. So I say if the employee ID has got marks between 50 and 60, give them 5 as grace marks. Okay, we want to give them the 5 grace marks because it is found in the syllabus when people appeared for the board, when they for exams, one question carrying 5 marks was out of the syllabus. It happens also. So management decided that people who have got 50 to 70, between this we will add 5 extra marks to them. Okay, and people who have got already greater than 70, they are passed, so doesn't matter, right? This is the thing. If employee ID is not found, then just blank cell. So we would just want to put the blank cell. Okay, over to you now. How will we do it? Think on this. First of all, my first thing is employee ID has got greater than 70, so let us show that person is passed. Now how will you come to know whether that person has got greater than 70? Obviously when you know what is the score of that person in the maths. Now how will you get the scores? Obviously you use the VLOOKUP. So I go and use the VLOOKUP. So I go and say that employee ID this, go in this table, freeze the table, and then let's capture the score in the maths. I got the score which is 66 and which is correct, right? Now I'm going to test this. To test this, I put the if condition. I say that if this entire output is greater than 70, then this person is pass. Okay, but what if this person hasn't got greater than 70? Then we would like to go and check. Okay, so if he hasn't got the greater than 70, is he or she is going to fall in the another bracket 50 to 70, because then we will add 5 as a grace marks. Now you have two conditions: greater than 50, greater than equals to 50, and less than equals to 70. So you cannot go here in this false and write single if, because I don't have one logic here, I have two logics here. So I will use and both the logics are to be true. So I'm going to say that if and then the logic 1. What is the logic 1? Of course, the marks obtained by this person. Now what is the mark? I mean, how many marks this person has got? Well, we again have to use the VLOOKUP. So I go and find out VLOOKUP. Please find out the marks of this person again in this table. Right? Okay. Once you get the marks, you're going to say that is it going to be greater than and equals to 50? Okay. If it is, I mean, obviously in the logic 1 you will write like this, but in the logic 2 what you will write? Again you will find that person marks, and this time, so I just go and copy this entire thing rather than doing it again. But this time I'll say that if that is less than and equals to 70. Why I'm saying less than equals to? Because I'm saying that 50 and 70 should also be counted. So this is the logic 1, guys. Understand? In the logic 1 you are using simply a VLOOKUP to again capture the maths score, putting that under the test if it is greater than or equals to 50, and this is also. Maybe a person has, let's say, scored a marks, let's say 45. So 45 doesn't come in this category. It is not greater than equals to 50. So automatically your if and will fail, right? So we have put logic 1 here. If I just click here, you see this is the logic 1. This is the entire logic 1. Are you greater than equals to 50? This is the logic 2. Are you less than equals to 70? If both the conditions satisfies, if both the results come as true, comma true, you know that we need to close the bracket. Then what do you want to write in the true of this if and? You want to write? You don't want to write anything. You want to add 5. 5 to what? 5 to the scores of this person in maths. But then how do you know what is the score of this person? I don't know, because I don't know where this employee ID is. This table has a 2000, 5000, 10,000 entries. We have got so many employee IDs. So what? VLOOKUP is there. So now you use the VLOOKUP again to find out the score of this person. So go in this table again, and this time I find out the scores again in the maths, but this time whatever the score we get, we will add 5 to it. Now what if this is not between 50 and 70? Then what are you going to write in the value false? Obviously just display that as blank. We are done with that. So my value true, value false. If or whatever it is, I told you have to fill the true and the false parameters. So false is filled, true is already filled, because this VLOOKUP plus 5 is my true parameter, right? So this true is filled and this false is filled for this if function. So we are done with this. I just go and close this and I press enter, and there we go. Do you want to accept the correction? Yes, I want to accept the correction. I quickly go and freeze the tables. We need to freeze the tables. F4. Formula looks lengthy, but when you start writing this formula, it is easy. That is how it is. Now interestingly, I find here the error. Instead of the error, it should be actually blank cell. What is happening here? Why we getting this sort of error? Let's go and check that, because I think this should have come here. I'll tell you the reason, guys. You see what happened when you go to the formula. The very first thing which your this function, will execute. We look up k9. So we have this 77. We look up, find this 77 in your table, and it is not there. 77 is not here. So we look up, returns the error. You cannot compare error with some number. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. So finally what happens, this comes as an error. Now generally in if, either we get true or false, and basis that true and false, we go in the value true and value false. But if you get the error in that, instead of the true or the false, entire function obviously will go in the error, because you cannot say that if this returns the error, you cannot say that this is greater than 70. How can you compare an error with some number? It is like comparing some text with a number, like if Ajay is greater than 100, if any name, anything, you can't do that, right? So that is why what happens, if this function returns the error, the entire function go in the error mode because of this wrong comparison. But finally we know that ultimately if the output is error, it only means that the employee ID is not there. Otherwise if will always work, because if this VLOOKUP is able to find out the score of maths, your logic will always return true or false. So there is no way that you get this error for any other reason. Error will come only if VLOOKUP is not able to find out the maths, the score of this employee ID, and that is possible only when that employee ID does not exist, right? So that means you just go and write here if error. If error actually is very easy, just go and put the entire function in the value, comma, see this is getting bold, and I just write here blank like this. So finally we have our answer. Long formula, but easy to write. See now, okay, 44 is coming here, and I don't find any reason why it's giving me the blank. Okay, so can we go and check that? This is how, when you have a long formula, I use the evaluate formula. So K12, what is K12? 44. Now this should not return me the error, because if it returns the error, only then we will have this space executed, So let's go and check that. Well, we are getting the correct answer. Okay, so 44 is there, and 44 is there. 44. I'm not here finding the employee IDs. I'm finding their marks. So 44 has got how many marks in the maths? 44, which is what?
Yes.
Which is less than 50. I mean,
Okay.
it doesn't qualify here, it doesn't qualify here. So finally you are having a blank. So let me do this way, because what happened, employee ID and the score both are same, so you got confused, and I also got confused. If I just write here 100 for example, and I just write here 100, now you see, again you have the blank. The reason, because we are not here to find out whether this employee ID is there or not. We are actually finding out the marks, and then that marks we are comparing it. So 44 is a marks this person has got, and we are in no mood to give this person neither grace marks. Obviously we're not adding the grace marks. There is no question of showing this person as pass. But if I just go and write here 99, you see that you have the pass. So it's not that space, it's not, I mean, the 100 error pose. Okay, so yeah, so I'm done with this, guys. Okay, now tomorrow, I mean in the next session we will meet. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.